Let's go to the phone real quick. And here is Tim Lussier all the way from Hawaii. Aloha, brother.
Hey, aloha, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now,
good,
Tim.
Good to,
no, go ahead.
Oh, just good to be here. Obviously, you're excited, and I'm hearing a lot from my Oregon friends, since I'm from Westland originally, about how excited this is to have Charles Djou elected.
I know.
It's interesting here.
Yeah, here's what I want to do. I want people to understand who you are and all that, because here's the thing. I don't even remember how I know you.
I think Facebook. That's the beauty of Facebook. We just all connect.
I swear, I'm like, I know this guy.
I don't think we've actually met, but, you're friends with Matt Wingard, who I guess will be later on the show.
Yep.
So you're friends with me.
Oh, there we go. I know. We've chatted and whatnot and talked about life in Hawaii, because I lived there for many years, and you're over there in Honolulu. You're going to college over there, right?
Yeah, I just graduated Wednesday night from Hawaii Pacific University, which is the largest private university here in the state.
That's a great school.
It's a great school. A third of the students are international, so it's an amazingly diverse school, and obviously Hawaii is very diverse with only 20% Caucasian. So, Portland loves to talk about diversity and, that kind of thing. And then, I'm over here living it. So it's interesting to be the minority here. I get a new perspective.
I'm glad you said that. I've tried to explain that to people. I lived in Hilo, and let me tell you, I think there's about 1% Caucasians there.
Yeah, the Big Island is definitely more local, and obviously a lot more people are coming over to the islands to retire from the mainland, which the people that have lived here a long time are a little upset about.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes.
Oh no,
but,
they don't like that.
Everyone lives aloha, so at the end of the day, people are really nice to each other. Yeah. Much like the Northwest, people are friendly and family oriented, and it's a good state.
Do you know what I found? And I know we're way off topic, but I think people should know this. Oregon could never be the way Hawaii is as far as the so-called diversity. And what I say, the reason I say that is everybody acknowledges, maybe confirm this or not, Tim, but everybody acknowledges what race you are, but it's not in a negative way. It's, a typical conversation would be, my Chinese friend Bob was hanging out with my Filipino friend Joe, and they were hanging out with my Japanese friend Tony. You know what I mean? Everybody acknowledges race.
There's so many differences between the cultures and the ethnicities that everyone just enjoys it.
Yeah.
And instead of people being so sensitive like, they are on the mainland, here it's just part of natural, So being Filipino, you can make, certain jokes about, what kind of work you are or what kind of food you have. And it's all part of the enjoyment. It's how people were able to connect back when they, were working on the sugarcane field or on the getting pineapple out of the farm. So it's an interesting thing, yes.
It really is a cool thing that people, you're right, the sensitivity, that's the thing, the PC, all that. As liberal as Hawaii is, that's one of the great things that I loved about living in Hawaii is everybody knows where they're from and all that, and they're very cool about it, and everybody gets along with this incredibly diverse community. But now, here's the thing. It is liberal. When I mean Democrats absolutely rule and conquer Hawaii, didn't they?
Yeah, well, and it's a lot of it goes back to how Republicans were in charge at first because they were the pro-business people, and when Hawaii, the kingdom, became a state and it was a territory first, there was Republicans in charge. So from then, it's been a heavily Democratic state since then, and it's just it's a monopoly. I mean, Matt Wingard's working hard to get a lot of state reps elected, all over Oregon, but there's 4 state reps in the House here that are Republican. In the Senate, there's 2. So, we think we have it bad in Oregon when it comes to a Democratic majority. It's a joke here about how there's only 6 in the whole state capital.
I was when I lived in Maui. Linda, at the time, she went by Linda Lingle or Linda Crockett, I think, at the time. She wasn't married. She was the mayor of the county of Maui, and now she's your governor, and she's a Republican.
Now, that's the one nice exception is that she threw a fluke and obviously, they realized, and just like with Charles Djou's election, obviously you need a balance of power, and so thankfully she's been elected. But she's had a tough time, with we talk about the unions and, the Oregon Education Association in Oregon having a monopoly in the state. Thankfully, Ron Mauer's so close, and hopefully he'll win it. But at the same time, there's furloughs because the unions won't take a pay cut or let anybody be laid off. So Linda Lingle is now the fall person for the lack of having money in the schools, and they're actually having to have furlough Fridays on Fridays, and the kids aren't able to be in school on Fridays, and it gives us a new opportunity as Republicans to talk about school choice. I mean, because it's an absolute joke that the unions and the state government are blocking children from going to school on Friday.
How were you involved in Charles Djou's campaign, or were you were involved somehow? Weren't you just like helping out a bit?
Yeah, this is my final semester this last semester, and Charles was a city councilman, so he was the one Republican on the city council. The mayor is big Democrat and just kind of a token Democrat. Charles Djou was always the guy that would be out there saying no to the rail, no to this ridiculous spending that they're having, to all these wasteful programs, to allowing homeless people to camp in the park. And so I knew this Charles Djou guy. I was like, wow, what a great leader. The one guy that will actually stand up and stand on his principles for fiscal responsibility. So, he was announced that he's running for the seat in January. So, obviously I signed up to help, and I met with the campaign and asked what I could do. But then all of a sudden, Neil Abercrombie, the current U.S. representative, close friend of President Obama, announced that he was going to resign because he's running for governor. So all of a sudden, this is a open seat, a special seat, instead of just a seat that will be elected in November. So now, all of a sudden in January, it's announced that in 3 months there would be a special election. And then that became, one of the top seats in the nation for Republicans to get it. And I think Charles is a special candidate because he's just so ideal in everything he has. I mean, he's a city councilman, he's a lawyer, he went to USC like Matt Wingard, so he's a city councilman, he was a state representative, and he has a lot of experience. He's well-spoken, family-oriented, married with 3 kids. So I think he's kind of the ideal candidate, and we need more candidates like that in the Republican Party.
Now, to be somewhat, the lack of term devil's advocate, in a way, what paved the way for this, though, was the stupidity of the Democratic Party in Hawaii. Wasn't there some crazy deal that went on where they split the vote?
Yeah, so, he never thought he had a shot. In January there's a poll that was announced where the 2 Democrats you're talking about, Ed Case and Colleen Hanabusa, were in the 20s and 30%, and there's Charles Djou, who's is only just kind of this critic of the Democratic status quo, and he was, I think, polling in the single teens. I mean, very, very far behind. Mm-hmm. And they did indeed split the vote. President Obama tried to put some pressure on here. The Democratic Congressional Committee put, I think it was $200,000 into the seat, trying to attack Charles Djou and calling him everything under the sun. He signed a no new tax pledge. So what did they do? They turned it around and told everyone that he's for exporting jobs because he's giving tax breaks for big evil companies. I mean, they just threw everything at the wall for him, or everything at the wall, and nothing stuck though, because obviously he ended up winning with 39%. And those 2 who were indeed splitting the vote, but I don't think it's that simple though. I mean, one ended up getting 30% and one got 28%. But for a Republican in this state to get 39% of a vote in a very, very competitive election, I don't think that's just splitting the vote. I think that his message of fiscal responsibility definitely is resonating, and I think that he'll have a good chance in the fall. Hopefully he continues to be a fiscal conservative, and I think people will reelect him for that because they want change, and they want real change of fiscal responsibility.
Now, Charles Djou takes over